Hello, mixtresses and mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress Video, and it's time for another Unfair Comparisons video. So today, obviously, as you can see, I am going to be comparing Sasuraibito Tarot to Wild Unknown. So basically, I just got Sasuraibito, and I'm like super into it. And I wanted to do an Unfair Comparisons video. Just to sort of set the scene for you guys. It's snowing outside right now. It's a snow day. I didn't actually have to work today, but even if I had had to, I'm happy for my coworkers because they got to have the day off. And I'm using this really terribly cheesy Christmas coaster I got in the dollar aisle at Target. So just to sort of set the scene for you guys, actually, I was going to do that so you could see the coaster when I pick the thing up, but it's going to create a shadow, so let's not. Just sort of set the scene for you guys. There's a window right there. North facing, I'm watching the snow come down, and I'm hoping it's going to be extreme enough that we're closed tomorrow because I am supposed to work a full 8-hour shift at the library tomorrow, and it would be awesome if I could have the day off. I'm going to use my little wolf lighter to light a candle, and basically I want to set an intention right now of like lightening our load. I feel like there's been a lot of heaviness in society. I mean, particularly just the last few years in general. A lot of that heaviness is connected to social justice and things that need to be shaken up, things that need to change. We all needed to be more woke. However, there's a certain level of childlike joy that we have left behind with how connected we are now as a society. So it's a good thing that we're connected, but there's also some badness attached to it. And this is a theme that I talk about a lot. But anyway, I just wanted to spend some time just doing something silly with you guys. Let me see. I'm going to turn the overhead light on, actually. It's not going to make a huge difference, but basically I just got this Sasuraibito tarot. And I am blown away by it. Like, it's one of those things, like, it's been on and off my wish list. Like, I'll decide, no, maybe I don't really want it. And then I'll put it back on the list again. And then I'll take it off. And then I'll put it back. And I just basically one day I was scrolling through Instagram and I saw one of Stasia Burrington's, which is the author of that deck, artist and author. I saw one of her posts where she was talking about how much she loves to like write our names on the address labels and she loves to see where we're from. And it was just this really sweet message about how much she loves being a creator in this tarot community. And there was just like so much love and light coming from her post that I was just like, I had just put this deck back on my wish list like the day before. And I was able to get a little bit of money for a deck that I sold on eBay that was a limited edition deck, so it was worth a little bit more. So I had the money and I was just like, this is the sign. This is what I needed. I need to get this deck right now. And I used it all last week and I'm just so blown away by it. It made me so happy that I wanted to find an Unfair Comparisons I wanted to find a deck to compare it to, and I always have to have some sort of thematic reason for doing these Unfair Comparisons videos, and it took me a while because I don't really have any other decks like this. This deck for me, the Sasuraibito, is very earthy and emotionally evocative and just sort of true and real. I mean, it really truly is more of an earthy deck presence than stuff that I usually have in my collection. So it was kind of a weird, I don't know, it just is a little bit off from what I usually use, but it's it feels like it's like a best friend almost, you know? I already feel like it's just a really good friend kind of a deck, and I've just been so taken by it. So it took me a while to decide, like, what do I want to compare it to? And I think I can compare it to Wild Unknown. For me, Wild Unknown is the first deck that I bought this year on my tarot journey, and I have learned tarot this year. And it's just been a really big deal for me. And this was the deck that kind of, one of the decks that started it all for me. And it's one of my very favorite decks. I might even put this as my very favorite deck. And it also has that sort of like, it's very neutral. Like, it's nature. It tells you how it is, and you can either accept it or not. But it's not going to judge you if you don't take its advice. It's not sassy. It's not, it's confrontational because it tells you exactly what the truth is, but it tells it to you in a very neutral way. It's like, here it is. This is nature. This is life. Accept it or don't, you know, whatever. I still love you. And this deck kind of has a similar vibe to me. It very much shows you what's up. But this deck has conveys a little bit more love. So it might seem weird to you, just like that I'm comparing a deck that has no people in it to a deck that has people in, I think, not every single card, but almost. But these both have a similar feeling to me of kind of I don't know. Well, I guess we can just talk about it while we flip through the cards. Like, just shut up, Mixtress, and start flipping through the cards. It's interesting because I've seen, you know, I always like look through a lot of flip throughs of decks before I buy them on YouTube. And so I'd seen like lots of flip throughs of this deck because everybody was super impressed by it and into it in the last year or so, whenever I think it came out sometime last year. But seeing it on a video is a completely different experience. Like, looking at this in person right now, this is just so evocative. It's so beautiful. It's so expressive. Like, every single one of these cards is so pure and expressive. Like, you don't need a guidebook. You don't need to know a lot about tarot. There's no arcane symbolism in this deck. It's right there for you. You could know nothing about tarot and use this tarot deck. And I kind of feel the same about Wild Unknown as well. Being that I knew very little, despite the fact that I've had tarot decks my, you know, ever since I was a teenager, I didn't really connect to the symbolism until getting this deck this year. So I feel like both of these decks are decks that could be beginner decks, as long as you relate to the imagery, of course. This one kind of bothered me whenever I saw it in videos, but in person, it's so emotionally evocative, just like the watercolor. I mean, I guess both of these decks have watercolor, so that's another way to connect them to each other. Both of these decks are just a close-up of the horse. It takes the focus of the chariot from whoever might be riding in the chariot or driving or directing the horses to the horse itself, which I've always really loved that about Wild Unknown. This is probably my favorite chariot card of all time. And there's some interesting gender dynamics in the Sasuraibito. Like, I thought this might be a man, but then also the curve of the breast. This could just be a more masculine presenting woman, or it even could be a man. Like, you could see this either way. And I kind of like that. kind of distracted by like the snow outside the window. I wish you guys could see it. But if I try to adjust my tripod, it's not the most stable tripod in the world. If I try to adjust it, it won't go well. So just imagine like wispy, blowing, magical snow. I'm just so blown away by this deck. This one, I think, I'm not totally sure that that is what she was going for when she created this Temperance card, but I think that this is a trans man because you've got sort of like this little bit of what might be scarring from removal of breast tissue right here. I think that it's another one that is open to interpretation, and I can see it that way, even though it's just a line, you know, it's just one little line. But I can see this card, and I couldn't tell that by looking at the videos online. But in person, to me, that very clearly, this card says to me, I am a trans man. And that takes the meaning of the Temperance card to a whole new level that just makes me feel so, I feel so immediately emotionally connected to this deck. Like I've only had it in my life for like 2 weeks, and I feel like it's already one of my favorites. I love that this is like a family cemetery. And the trees being struck by lightning, but you know that the, you know, whoever's buried here, their bodies will still be able to nourish the tree. So even if this is a devastating time for this tree, you know it'll come back. Or even if it doesn't, you know another tree will grow here. It's incredible. It's incredible. And that, again, what these like little comparisons do for me is they help me see cards in ways that I never have before. So for me, I could even zoom out of this card in my mind, and I could imagine a little family cemetery around the ring, like a little fairy ring of buried families, family souls at the base of this tree that you just can't see because it's more of a close-up. I will now see this card in that way from now on because of this moment. I'm pretty emotional lately too, so don't be surprised if I just start crying in this video. This is me right now. It is kind of. I have just been, oh God, a lot of weird shit has just been happening in my life, and that's okay. It's all right. I'm working through it, and it's been a year, guys. I'm ready for 2020. How about you? It will present its own challenges for sure, but I am ready for it. And I don't quite know. I mean, besides just using, okay, I just got it. Okay, I didn't really understand why this card makes me feel so warm and fuzzy and cozy, but I wasn't sure how it connected to the Judgment card until this exact second, because she's essentially using her beautiful blanket here as a cocoon, and she's making her transformation. She's answering the call within her, and she's just not quite ready to break out of the cocoon yet, you know? This is sort of the moment right after she breaks out of the cocoon. I love tarot, you guys. I really do. sort of creating. This reminds me of when I was in, is it New Mexico? I think it was New Mexico, where they have like the vortexes. We went to that national park where they have vortexes, and like this reminds me of that sort of energy. I really like the minors in this deck too, because there's symbolism, but it's so fucking simple. And I mean, this deck has the same thing. Like, this is just 2 sticks, but the fact that there's the rainbow in the background, that there's the narrowing of the focus towards the top, like, there's a lot that you can see here without having to have a lot actually going on, which is what I think is so beautiful about simpler, more expressive decks, because I don't know for certain, but I feel like this deck was created organically, and by that I mean it was done with actual like pen and ink and watercolor. I know this one was. And there's just something, I have a lot of decks that were created entirely with computers, but whenever it's done in this way, in this more old-fashioned way of with pen and ink and paint and all of that, it has a little bit more automatic emotional resonance for me. It just connects to me a little bit harder from the jump. And I can definitely be connected to computer imagery as well. Okay, that was unnecessary. All right. I think it was a teenager though, so we'll forgive him for that. But I mean, it makes sense now. At first I was like, is it a stretch to compare this to Wild Unknown? But it's not. I'm seeing so many similarities. Oh, I love how they're like on fire. You guys, I just did not, it's just incredible. Oh, look at this 6 of Wands. I have an emotional connection to this deck that is just like so weird. Like, why? I thought I was like done buying decks this year, and then suddenly I just had to have this one. It actually, a lot of the imagery is similar to Wild Unknown, isn't it? This is the 7 of Wands card for me. Like, when I think of 7 of Wands, I think of this card. I love it so much. And this one kind of says the same thing, just in a slightly different way. Like, I stand apart from the other wands because I have turned myself into a motherfucking axe. Okay? Don't fuck with me. I like that. There's actually more cards in this deck than I remember without people. Although I think that's pretty exclusive to the wands. We'll see whenever we get there, but I love this 9 of Wands so much. What is that? Candle wax or something in the corner of my card? Of course there is. There's candle wax all over all of my life because I'm a fire magic queen. I still, like, I thought I was going to get this as a tattoo this year, but it just hasn't happened, so I don't think it's going to happen in 2019, but I know there are a lot of people that have this card as a tattoo, but I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm still trying to decide where to put it and how exactly I want to execute it, but it's going to happen for sure. It's just going to happen. I love her too. This deck is not afraid of masculinity. And that is something that I have really worked on this year. I am, when I first found out about the Sasuraibito, it was early on in the year that I found out about it. But at that time, I wouldn't have been ready for an image that's as masculine as this. But now I love it, actually. One of the reasons why Wild Unknown was the first deck for me this year is because I wasn't even, at the beginning of this year, I wasn't even ready to have people in my tarot cards. I am not even kidding. I had some things that I needed to work on, and I wasn't ready to see people reflected in my tarot cards. Um, I mean, I pretty quickly, like by the end of February, I owned a handful of decks that had people in them, but I needed to start with this deck that didn't have any people in them. Look at that. I mean, how gorgeous. She's holding a black cat. She looks so sweet, but she also looks like she can take care of some shit. I've been pulling this card a lot lately to kind of figure out what that's about. I don't really know yet. I mean, how good does that look? That looks like some dank green tea. Like, I want to taste that. It looks like it's in a fucking stone mug or something. Yes. Give it to me. I'm ready. I actually don't really like this Ace of Cups. It just doesn't have enough contrast to me. Like, the background blends in with the cup a little bit too much for my taste. Just an aesthetic thing. And look at that. You got lotuses for that sort of watery cup imagery. We've got hands. I like to see hands, especially in like love related cards. I like to see hands because hands can be gender neutral. I mean, obviously one of these figures has painted fingernails and the other one doesn't. But this one has heart tattoos, so there's a feminine possibility to both of these hands. And there's also a masculine possibility to both of these hands. These hands are gender neutral. Very important. Oh, I just want to cry every time I see this Three of Cups. Just the whole thing. Just, they're so beautiful. To me, these two are sisters. And this is their adopted sister. Not like literally adopted, but like this is their soul family. And these two just happen to be biological sisters. God. I'm just so... I'm having a moment right now, guys. I hope you're having it with me. I'm just loving this. Just loving all of it. This is one of the only... Like, I love rats. I really honestly do. But this card doesn't immediately tell me what I need to be told from the Four of Cups. It just doesn't. This one does, though. I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm like, hey rat, what's up? Let's talk about apathy. I mean, I've made peace with it, for sure. But I don't entirely get it. Oh, and look at that. The rainbow's broken off before it reaches you. But it's forming. It's forming over here with the upright cups. They're floating. Even though you feel like you're drowning, your cups are floating. You're going to be okay. And both of these have that sort of rooted feeling to them. Like the roots of childhood and whimsy and joy and lightness are within you. And even if you can't see it, it just, you know, even if you just look like a boring old tree, look what you've got underneath you. All the building blocks of life, the foundation, where you came from. Six of Cups is important for all of us right now, guys. I'm just really feeling it that we need to reclaim some joy and childlike energy that we haven't had in us. We haven't been embracing the joy and the laughter. So I'd like to encourage anyone that like is resonating with that message right now, take some time today to do something that brings you joy. Is that going for a walk in the snow? Is that dancing? Is it watching some stand-up comedy? Is it watching a movie that you used to watch over and over and over when you were a child? Is it watching a TV show that just makes you laugh even though it's stupid? And like, give yourself permission to not take life seriously today if it's at all possible for you whenever you see this, whether it's now at the end of 2019 or years from now, whenever that is. Try to take a moment for yourself today where you can reclaim some of that childlike joy. I mean, what is more Eight of Cups than like giving yourself direct eye contact in the mirror while hacking off your hair? What is more Eight of Cups than that? Nothing, I tell you. This is beautiful. I love it so much. I actually had one of these moments last week. I had a pretty crappy week. There was just a lot going on, and I'm not going to go into it, but it was just, I was really depressed last week. And I was going through some other stuff as well. And I had a moment where I had to get ready for a Christmas party. And I knew that if I forced myself to go, I would feel a little bit better, you know, or even if I didn't enjoy the party itself, at least I would be happy that I went. And I had just, you know, barely gotten out of pajamas for 48 hours. It was just a dark couple of days last week. And I made the decision to cut my own bangs because they were really overgrown, and it was time, and I didn't feel like facing people to go get them cut by my hair guy. So I just did it myself, and it was exactly what I needed. It gave me the strength to get dressed and put on some makeup and go to a Christmas party, and I'm glad I did. But this card reminds me of that. Oh, look at that. I mean, she's like growing out of a rose. Her heart is warm, and she's got pink hair, and she's got these flowers everywhere. And it's just this self-love happening in this Nine of Cups is just, this is like the most beautiful self-love card I have in my entire tarot collection. It's just so gorgeous and evocative and resonant and all the things. I love it. I love this card so much, but like, because there's fire, I get a little confused for a second. I mean, I'll get used to it. I'm already to the point where when I see this card, I'm like, yes, it's a campfire, but it's still 10 of cups, still 10 of cups, still 10 of cups. Like, and that does make sense. A campfire, like sitting around a campfire with your friends, is a very 10 of cups moment. So that totally makes sense. This one's a little hard for me too, because she's got a bow and arrow. So that to me is wands. So this one is one of the only cards in the Sasuraibito that doesn't totally make sense to me. I mean, I get that she's holding the key to her own heart, so that's a very cups energy, but it's just a little bit harder for me to grasp that one. Oh, look at that. Look at that Knight of Cups. He looks so sweet. And he's got a book, and he's got his tea or coffee. He looks so sweet. Oh, I love that there are older people depicted in this deck too. It makes me very happy. It's something that like I didn't even really realize I needed until getting this deck, and I'm like, oh yes, okay. Thank you, Queen of Cups. Thank you. Thank you for being a wise older woman. And look at this King of Cups. Is that not like the sweetest little dude? Don't you just want to sit down and argue with him about the meaning of life? Like, you know it's going to be an argument, but also he's going to be coming from a good place. So it's going to be like an invigorating argument with your grandpa. Or maybe that's just my own thing. My grandpa and I disagree on a lot of things, but he really loves to argue with me. He gets like this twinkle in his eye, and he says something just to provoke me because he genuinely enjoys that back and forth. And he's one of the sweetest people in the universe, even though he has some controversial views. He has some very unfortunate views politically, but there's a certain extent of that, like somebody born in 1935, you gotta forgive him a little bit for some of that shit. But I'm still gonna argue with him. I am the social justice warrior in my family, but I like this. Two of Swords, and she's a warrior. I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple. She's a samurai warrior, and she's got the moon. It's so simple, but it's so powerful. Pretty traditional Three of Swords energy. But again, like if this were your first tarot deck and you knew fucking nothing about tarot, you'd get this card and you'd know exactly what it is. Oh, heartbreak. Yes. Okay. We're dealing with heartbreak right now. Which is why decks that evoke any piece of the Rider-Waite-Smith imagery are just really simple to understand. That's what's so good about the Rider-Waite-Smith energy. This image right here is, I was thinking about it yesterday. The way that I feel with this type of movement and the type of emotion that really comes through with the Six of Swords, which is actually one of my cards of the day today, actually. The way that this comes through for me is the way that I wanted to feel about the Light Seers Tarot, because there's a lot of like body postures in the Light Seers Tarot that, especially like that Judgment card where, you know, she's like reaching up and there's like this dancer energy, and the movement is just so gorgeous in that deck. And I wanted, watching videos of it, I wanted to feel that emotion whenever I got that deck, but I didn't. But I do with this deck. I get from this deck, because of the movement and the body postures and everything, I get exactly, I mean, I just feel like you don't need to know anything about tarot. You don't need to. You know what this is. She's emerging. She's been drowning for a long time, and she's emerging. She's taking that first breath after emerging. And that is the Six of Swords. Isn't that gorgeous? This one, on the other hand, this one's hard for me. It's hard for me to even be able to tell that this is swords. Like, for a long time, I thought this was wands. Or, you know, like, at first glance, I'd be like, okay, Six of Wands. Wait, no, that's not wands. That's not wands. Those are swords. But you have to look really close to see that they're swords. I mean, as far as court cards are concerned, I think no one really does it better than Wild Unknown. The fact that you have like a whole family of a certain type of animal in each suit, it's everything. But I do like her. She's pretty damn cool. And she's pretty damn cool too. Interesting that, like, I think she writes something in the guidebook about why she chose to have a younger King of Swords. But to me, when I look at this, I just see Link, which is fine. But he's more of a Page of Swords, right? I love this Three of Pentacles, both of these. This is the Three of Pentacles that I think of when I think of Three of Pentacles. And this one has that same imagery. You know, like you get that sort of mountain vibe. And it's just so simple. And the addition of the hands really gives you more of that teamwork feeling. Both of these are just so gorgeous. So, so, so gorgeous. There's just something about, maybe I need to like start using watercolors. Like I've never really been drawn to using watercolors, but there's something about the emotional communication that you can have with an art form like watercolor that isn't completely, you can't completely control it because you're mixing paint with water and you're letting it do what it wants. You're letting it flow where it wants to go. I mean, of course, you can choose to be much more controlling with your watercolor, but it's more evocative to me whenever there's a little bit of freedom in it. Like if you get close to these cards, from either of these decks, you're gonna see like where the watercolor bled, and you kind of have to let go a little bit with that and let it flow. And there's just something that's so emotionally resonant about that. Oh, speaking of emotional resonance, like how great is this Six of Pentacles? Y'all that have been watching this channel for a long time know that my favorite Six of Pentacles card, because I say it like in almost every video, is from Moon Power Tarot. But this one is right up there. Like if I were ranking every Six of Pentacles card, this would probably be number 2. I just love that line of energy that they're giving and receiving to each other. It's gorgeous. I wonder if you guys can hear the snow blowing outside. I kind of need to like leave the house today and go get coffee because I don't have enough coffee for tomorrow, but I also don't want to leave the house for any reason. You know, it's a snow day. I just want to stay in. Oh, Nine of Pentacles is my card of the year. And look at that. God, that's one of my fucking favorite Nine of Pentacles ever. Like she's a warrior. She's already done all the work. She has her falcon. I love to see a falcon in the Nine of Pentacles. I hope you can hear the snow. It's very subtle. You might not be able to hear it, but like every once in a while the wind will blow a bunch of snow off the roof next door. And you can just kind of hear it crashing like a wave onto my house. Because my house is much taller than the house next to me. So when the snow blows off their roof, it sort of like crashes into the window that's right in front of me right here. How gorgeous is this Queen of Pentacles? Mm. just slightly disappointed in this King of Pentacles, simply because I'd like to see, you know, another like older man like in the King of Cups. But I guess it is nice to see like he's overlooking his mountains. He's very stable. He's very rooted in the earth here, even having just a pinnacle at his feet. It just sort of seems like this card might have been a little rushed. And there you have it. There's the unfair comparisons between Sasuraibito Tarot and Wild Unknown. What other, I need to like list for you guys what tarot decks I have or something so you can help me decide like what 2 decks do you want me to pit against each other. So maybe I'll do a tarot collection video. That's something that I probably need to do anyway, because a lot of people do like their tarot collection videos at the end of the year every year just to see how it evolves every year. And since this is my first year collecting tarot, I could go ahead and do one of those and it'll be my first. So I might do that in the coming weeks. I have a week off after Christmas, so that will leave me plenty of time to get my thoughts organized on that. So I'll probably be posting a lot of videos in the coming couple of weeks because I'm just going to be doing lots of year-end assessments in my life. I really like to be very reflective this time of year. I know like a lot of people do. So anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. Let me know your thoughts on any tarot decks that I have like shown on my channel before. If you want me to do an unfair comparisons between them and one of the other ones that I have, let me know. I mean, I like to find my own reasons for comparing decks, but if you guys want me to compare 2 decks that I would normally never show side by side, I'm up for it. Let's do it. I'll see you guys in the next one.